SELED is essentially aiming to close skills gaps we all have, especially when we're talking about the literacy and digital literacy and language and job skills gaps that are stubborn. And we do that in a universally accessible way by delivering these 3-minute micro lessons that we confirm understanding with two-way texts, that you get paired with a coach, and ultimately you can stack those into a certificate and other. Why are we doing this? We want to offer that in any language, in any way, because the gaps are truly meaning the difference between life and death. I am not alone, as you see here from the slide. The SELED team are really passionate teachers and technologists and community service practitioners that have come together because of some of the most stubborn gaps that we've found. And I wanted to capture them on one slide. So the next slide, please, is really what we consider the gaps that are essentially between life and death. So we're calling them, we used to call them the hidden epidemics. It's about my 26th year in the space of trying to bridge digital literacy, access, and opportunity divides in the US and internationally. And I can really speak to how stubborn they are. It really prevents access to opportunity, jobs, and more. And often these are unknown. So I call them now the deadly assumptions about remote learning. Under the crisis and under this pandemic, it's really calling to attention some of these divides that we don't often talk about unless you're living the experience or you're the learner herself. So first assumption is that people have time, that they have time to get online for an hour, for 3 hours, for extraordinary programming. A lot of the facts that there's time demands on remote learning is a barrier to busy working adults with multiple jobs who are also doing multiple levels of care. So if we start there and start to examine how we can design for them, that's where we want to start. Second, internet. There's an assumption that everybody is accessing apps and internet in the same way. And unfortunately, we know 44% of families in the United States face the digital divide. What does that mean now when we're all at home and we're needing to access essential information, remote learning, and other critical services? What about the fact that most content that is created is written at above an 8th grade level and a college level, when 56% of people in the United States are reading below a 6th grade level, and we still have 1 in 5 cannot read at all? What about them? And in addition, remote learning is not comparable. This myth that if you offer something online, not in person, that it isn't comparable or even potentially more effective for certain learner types. So that's where we talk a little bit about keys to success in our mind around remote learning. And these keys have not come without collaboration, without co-creation, without having developed our platform and solution directly with learners and our partners who have given us feedback since 2012, when we were a research project at UCLA with Centro Latino Literacy and Concepcion Valadez, to today, where we essentially operate across the US with hundreds of partners who give us the feedback we need, with hundreds of thousands of users who give us the feedback we need to continually improve. So first and foremost, what we found is providing access to remote learning and critical information needed to thrive is needed 24/7. And it needs to be delivered in a fraction of the time. If you only have a few minutes a day to access information because you've got so much happening, let's get that information to people in a fraction of the time. It needs to be universally accessible. People come and access technology in different ways. Some have access to feature phones, smartphones, tablets. Maybe they're on WhatsApp. Maybe they can call in. We need to be able to have that fluency, ability to deliver content across any device so people are accessing that information in real time. We also argue that universally accessible at the literacy level, reaching each learner where they're at, not only in the digital literacy and access to devices, but the level of reading that they're at. Because those texts that are written at a college level aren't reaching folks. So we do have a tool where we can convert text at readability levels, even at level 0, just to be sure that folks can learn the fundamentals, get the information they need, and feed back into the system for that access. And then next, relevance is key and meaningful learning is key. So there's a lot out there that's important information? Is it relevant to the learner in context when they're operating in their home or in their neighborhood or when they're trying to get to and from work? How can we make sure it gets localized in a way that's meaningful and relevant? That's where we bring in quite a bit of the personalized or individualized coaching. That's where we have partners who use us as blended learning programs and others who are able to do that. And also we're able to do that through customizing our programs. We also need to map to the standards that are out there. People need to earn rewards and certificates that have some meaning in the marketplace. Otherwise, in some ways, we're wasting time. So we want to be sure to do that. But we also don't want to neglect how important real life skills are for folks. Navigating daily life, the essential skills needed to read a bus schedule, to read a prescription bottle, to actually fill in basic forms is truly a barrier. And when those forms are written in a font size of 6 and at a readability level of college, you've lost a majority of people right there. How do we make that accessible and a little bit easier for all to understand? And last but not least, navigation with all the information out there. How do we know it's accurate? How do we know it's in real time? So in that way, we try to make sure that there's this navigation around resources that have been validated as well. All right, next slide. So what do? We try to be as responsive as we can as a social enterprise. Our goal is to reach the scale of need for the hardest to reach. We created COVID-19 courses in direct response on March 10th in Spanish and English as a call-in version. Why? That CDC information, that World Health information wasn't accessible at the readability level. It wasn't audio, so audio lessons that communicated as a story, two-way texting can confirm understanding, wasn't available. So we made it available, got the feedback, and this week launched the next level. 4-part series on COVID-19 in multiple languages. More languages are coming. You can access it as a call-in for free, and it will go through some other fundamentals. I show you here at that level. You could how to stay safe during COVID-19. What are the signs and symptoms of COVID-19? What are the myths around COVID-19 that we need to break so that people can stay safe and we can flatten the curve? And last, what about the stress? How do we manage the stress of all this new normal? Those are accessible by any learner if they have a phone and can call in. This is a sample of a screen, but we have other ways of accessing. And essentially folks can access those, the courses and the programs you saw there and their coach that they get paired with over any device. They could be on WhatsApp, they could be calling in on a feature phone, they could be getting in any other way. As I mentioned, that's important to meet people where that it isn't just this instance you see here that's on a smartphone. If you called in, you'd be on your own messaging platform. All right, and coming soon, announcing next week, we have a program to reach learners direct with all of our programming and pairing with a live coach, just so that we're reaching our most vulnerable populations who need access. And now we can engage. How do you continually engage folks? Essentially, if you want to bring Google Voice, Remind, and WhatsApp all under one house, if you will, we've created these tools so that our teachers and program partners can continue to engage and in a very private way continue to support our learner success with a platform that includes these elements here. Anywhere from go ahead and knowing who, right down to the lesson. You could send a text to your folks. Our coaches are there to parallel and work with you. Our teachers are there to parallel and work with you to make sure that we can continue to offer the programming and even your programming if needed. But reporting is how we drive evidence-driven results. We do need to keep aware of, what works well and even better if.